there, everyone. My name is Michelle Dittmer, and I run the Canadian Gap Year Association. So excited to have you here today to discuss all things gap year. So please feel free to use the Q&A. This is going to be a pretty dynamic conversation that we're having here. So please do not hesitate to use that. This is your time to get the information that you need. I represent the Canadian Gap Year Association. We're a nonprofit organization. So whether students take a gap year or not, I do not make any more or less money. So this might be a little bit different than some of the other institutions that you're talking to today. My job is to just provide information and advocacy that this is a viable pathway and that students can really benefit from taking a pause, an intentional pause on their post-secondary journey. So excited that you're here. Please ask your questions. We're going to go through a ton of information over the next 23 minutes and make sure that you have the information that you need to better advise and support your students on the way. Like I said, my name is Michelle Dittmer and I run the Canadian Gap Year Association, nonprofit organization supporting students coast to coast on their gap year journey. So everything from deciding to gap or not to gap, that is the question. And then if they decide that a gap year is the right thing for them, then how do you make sure that it is purposeful time? So I think it's really important that we know that this time can be spent very purposefully and can benefit a lot of students. And I'm going to take you through a lot of that information. So really excited to share what I know with you, share some data, share some of the statistics, share some ideas so that you can do the job that you guys do so well. And I know this has been a very, very turbulent time. And it's been a very, very turbulent time with the pandemic. I'm just a little distracted with the comments here. The pandemic has changed a lot in education. It has changed a lot in the world of work. It has drastically impacted our young people more than any other demographic. And it has caused us all to push pause a little bit and reflect on what's really important. And we've noticed a lot of different trends. A lot of things that we're seeing is a lot of toll has been taken on our young people's mental health. We've seen a lot of challenges with people making decisions on what they want to pursue post-secondary. So there are so many things that we can really, really dive into when we're looking at the gap year pathway. So let me share these with you. And like I said before, don't hesitate to ask those questions. I'm here for you to get those questions answered. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what is a gap year, who takes one. We're going to bust some myths. We're going to talk about the impact of gap years on post-secondary education, give you some gap year ideas to get your brain thinking a little bit, and then talk about the role of advisor and some of the available resources that we have here at the Canadian Gap Year Association. So we are Canada's gap year experts. We support students with tons of events. We've got some professional development coming up for educators. We have some incredible expos coming up. We've got one live in Toronto. We've got a virtual one coming up. All sorts of great information to help people decide if a gap year is the right thing for them and then how to make it purposeful. So there is so much that we do, from podcasts to our ambassadors who are gap year alum that share their stories and their tips and tricks on YouTube. We've got incredible downloads, starter checklists. We've got resources for in your guidance offices. So you name it, we probably have it. And that's our job here, is to support students who want to pursue this gap year pathway and to support those who are supporting them. So we're going to talk about quickly what is a gap year and who takes one. So a gap year is very intentional time. So you don't default into a gap year. A gap year has purpose, and it's a time to intentionally push pause on whatever's happening in your life to pursue your own goals, whatever that may be. So some people are looking for academic goals. Some people are looking for career goals. Some of them are looking for personal development. It's really taking on all sorts of experiential learning opportunities and in a very self-directed way. So those are kind of the pieces, and it's really set up to design your life so that you have more clarity on what your next steps after your gap year is. So it's not a gap decade, it is a gap year. It doesn't have to be 12 months. Some people take a gap semester, some people take a gap 2 years, but this isn't a way of life. This is an intentional pause that then has a step that comes after that. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, like I said, these are the things that we're hearing from a lot of our students, and why a gap year has come up on the radar so much more often. We're hearing more about mental health and burnout. We're hearing students want financial independence. They're really looking to maybe earn some money on their gap year. We know a lot of them are confused about what career they want to head into and are hesitant to spend tens of thousands of dollars in years of their life studying or pursuing something that might not be the direction that they inevitably choose. And a lot of them recognize that they've missed out on a lot of those formative experiences. So that I think that it's really, really interesting to be able to for them to identify that, hey, I missed out on some of these things that would round out my skill set. So maybe I covered and checked all the boxes for my academics, but socially, maybe I'm missing some things, and a gap year can really help that out. So I see a question here. Can gap support only high school students, or those going to a master's program too? Yes. Yes, we support anybody who is intentionally pushing pause on formal education, and we can help them, whether that is post-secondary. So about 70% of the students that we work with are coming out of grade 12, and then about 30% are coming mid-post-secondary. So they've made a start into a program and it wasn't the right fit, or they have graduated and are taking a pause before med school or law school or master's program, or before entering the workforce. So we really do have a good variety of what's going on, and it varies in terms of what people are going to do based on their own goals. So let's talk about some of the archetypes, or some of the types of people that do tend to choose to take a gap year. So I don't like putting people in boxes, but we are human. We like structure. We like to categorize things. So this is our best attempt at being able to do that. So the first thing is kind of our kind of traditional version of what a gap student might be. So this is the explorer. They recognize that there are more things than their hometown that they want to see. They recognize that maybe there's more than life in high school. They want to get out there and see other things. So really having this explorer or adventure mindset, that's only one of the archetypes that we see. We got the direction seeker. These are folks who don't know what they want to do with their education. And so they're going to push pause and take some time to figure it out. Either they've got like 5 different things and they can't decide from those 5 things, or they have no idea whatsoever and they got to take some time to find something that lights their spark. And a gap year is a great way to either narrow it down or to expand and figure out what might actually be something of interest to you. So we see both ends there. We've got our high achiever. These are our burnout kids. They're the ones that are used to getting straight A's, being captain of the football team, head of student council, and they've put everything into their high school and just have nothing left in the tank. And we know that they want to excel and bring that same amount of energy and enthusiasm to their post-secondary, but perhaps they don't necessarily have the energy to do that. So they're going to take some time to recharge that battery. We've got a barrier breaker. So this is, again, a lot of our COVID kids. They've got something else going on in their life. Maybe their parents just divorced. Maybe they are, maybe they've got an eating disorder that they're working through, or social anxiety that they're working on. So they got something else on their plate that's going to prevent them from being a super, super successful student in post-secondary. So they're going to spend some time working on that on their gap year before they add in that additional pressure of post-secondary. We've got the savvy saver. So these are folks with some sort of financial need, or that they want to just get ahead and reduce their student debt. So they're going to spend their year working and earning money in order to pay for post-secondary or to reduce that student debt in the long run. Our plan B gappers, those are ones that maybe didn't get into the program of choice. Maybe they didn't have enough time to put together their portfolio. Maybe they were missing some credit. So they're or maybe they made an attempt into post-secondary and found out it wasn't the right fit. So they're actually going to push pause and find out, what is that plan B? What am I going to do? Either I'm going to upgrade my marks, or I'm going to build a stronger portfolio, or I'm going to reevaluate and find a different program that's a better fit for me, and really just evaluate that on the gap year, and then make another foray into formal post-secondary studies. And then we're seeing lots more project-based gappers. These are our entrepreneurs. These are our social justice activists. These are our people that have a curiosity of some kind, the what ifs. What if I could spend a year fixing up cars? What if I could start my own nonprofit? What if my passion for photography could make money? So this is all the opportunities where people have some sort of project that would take on a lot of their time. So it can be really helpful to maybe see a lot of those archetypes or personas in the students that you are servicing. So let's talk about what are some of the biggest fears that students, parents, teachers have of the gap year pathway, because they're very, very, very common. So the first one that I always hear is that students will not go back to school. And I'm pretty sure that this is something that you are thinking, that because it is your job as counselors to get these students into post-secondary, or that's the perceived role that we have, is to get them into post-secondary. And the data shows that between 81 and 90%, again, depending on the study, return to post-secondary. So those numbers are very, very promising, that if a student pushes pause, that they will return. And the interesting part about this is that when students return, they actually have higher GPAs, they graduate in fewer years, and they're more involved on campus than their non-gapping peers. And you'll also note that they are more likely to get a job after they graduate from post-secondary, because they have that life experience in that intermission between studies, rather than their higher education just becoming grade 13, 14, 15, 16. It becomes specifically that higher education. So actually looking for the opportunity to do further studies, not just what's expected of them. I was recently at a conference where they surveyed 20,000 post-secondary students about why they went to university. And one of the top 5 answers was, it was expected of me, or I didn't know what else to do. So we can be more intentional in that choice. And we have better outcomes if we actually push pause, which is really, really cool. This other myth, or this other fear, is that they're going to be behind their peers. So this is a social pressure. And the reality is, when we sit back and we think about it, what's the rush? What are we rushing towards? Retirement? Like, that's a long way off. Students who take a gap year, they graduate in fewer years than their counterparts. So what that means is that by pushing pause now, it's actually a leapfrog moment. So maybe you're going to be behind the people that you're in grade 12 with, because they're going to start a program right after grade 12. But if you go into your post-secondary with more certainty, then you can actually pick the right program and go directly through, rather than switching majors 3 or 4 times along the way. So this idea of being behind is a social construct, and it is very, very, very powerful for students to feel this. And it's our job to help them understand, well, what are you racing against? What are you working towards that is so urgent that you can't just delay it slightly? In the grand scheme of things, 1 year is not that long, and you're not actually going to be behind. The third myth that I hear is that gap years are expensive. This is a very, very common thought process, that you have to have lots of money, and that's not true. There is a gap year for every budget. What that means is that you can spend your year working. So I've had students that have made $80,000 on their gap year to pay for school. I've also had students that have spent $80,000 on gap year programming. The trick is to know where to find the different opportunities that are out there that are going to fit within the students and the family's budget. So no matter where you are on that spectrum, there is something for you. And it doesn't mean that if you have $80,000 to spend, you're going to have a better gap year experience than somebody who's earning money. They're just different. And that's one of our superpowers at the Canadian Gap Year Association, is matching students with the different programs and opportunities that exist out there that make those things come together really nicely. Did you know that Katimovic is around? And for $1,000, you can have a 5-month placement. 5 months covered, food, accommodation, travel, all of that covered for $1,000. Or the Explore program exists, and you can actually go for 5 weeks, and I think it's only $500. I haven't checked that number in a while. And do an immersion program in French. Again, food, accommodation, course content, everything covered for you. So it's about knowing where to find these resources, and we have a ton of them on our website. So that's a really great place to start. So the question is always, what is the impact on post-secondary institutions and post-secondary stuff? Hold on, I've got a little one at home, and she's coming down for a visit, I suspect. So can you go on the TV, kiddo? I'm giving a presentation right now, my lovey.
Well, something happened.
Okay, well, do you want to sit with me or do you want to go watch TV? Those are your two choices.
Well, after this, can you help my problem?
Yes, I will help your problem after this. It will take me 8 more minutes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll see you upstairs. Thank you for your patience, guys. And often you can defer your acceptance. So let's jump into this because we've only got a little bit of time here. So I'm often asked, is it better to apply to university in your grade 12 year and defer, or is it better to apply when you are on your gap year? Please don't play with that, Naomi. So they're just two different options for two different groups of students. I do encourage folks to apply in their grade 12 year if they have an idea of what they want to do, because a lot of colleges or a lot of universities will offer the option to defer, which means they will hold on to that student's admission for the following year. This is not universal. It's something that you have to look in institution by institution and program by program because it differs across the board. And I'll give you a couple examples in a second. But it's really great to do in your grade 12 year because you will have the support of the existing counselors to be able to, Naomi, please stop playing with that. Can you tell she's playing with my lights? So they will have your support to go through the process at least once. So that can be really, really helpful for them. Whether or not they choose to accept any of their offers or defer, that is up to them, but they can do it with them. The other option is to apply on your grade 12 or on your gap year. And there is no penalty for doing this in most cases. When you're applying, you just apply like you would a normal student. There's usually a box or something to check saying, are you applying directly from grade 12? And in most cases, you're not even considered a mature student. You're just considered an out of phase student. So there's no quota. There's no maximum or minimum that they need in order to apply. That is kind of a little bit of a myth that we need to bust here. So let me give you a couple examples here. The easiest way to find a deferral policy is to just Google, type in the name of the university and then what you're looking for. So that's what I did for UBC. And right here, you'll see I pulled this screen capture right from the website, deferring your admission, eligibility to defer your admission if you are taking a gap year. So UBC is one of the most liberal in its deferral policies. If you're taking a gap year, you can defer your acceptance kind of across the board. So really, really helpful. This example, it might be a little bit unclear for you if it's super, super small, but this is the University of Guelph. So pretty standard here saying what you got to do. But you'll notice here, the date for deferral is actually really, really late. It's midsummer. This is July 24th for last year. So it's really, really late when you have to defer. So students have a long time to make that decision, which is really important to know. And then over here, residence and scholarships. You will also need to defer your residence and your scholarships. Now, it's important to note that not all scholarships can be deferred. So make sure you do your research and read all of the fine print before you're committing to anything along the way. Now, here's the other end of the spectrum. This is the University of Ottawa. Basically, they say, unless there's extenuating circumstances, you are not able to defer your acceptance. So again, counselors and students need to do their research. Got my little buddy back here. So let me give you a couple of ideas as we move through this presentation, knowing there's only 5 minutes left, and put those questions in the Q&A so that I can get to them before the end of this presentation. A couple of ideas for your gap year. The three most common things that we hear is to travel, to work, and to volunteer. And those are great options, but I think we need to really expand our idea of what a gap year is and what is possible during this time. So traveling, working, and volunteering, they can all be done locally, nationally, so somewhere within Canada, or internationally. So really expanding what our ideas are, that can be really, really important. The next one is to work or study abroad. These are opportunities for students to earn credits in another country, develop intercultural competencies. So many opportunities for students to not only earn credits, but earn money abroad as well. We talked a little bit about the beginning about starting a business. This doesn't have to be like a Fortune 500 tech startup. This could be something smaller like childcare or lawn maintenance, or selling your jewelry that you make, or maybe you're a web designer in training. All of these things can be put into some sort of major project. I also like to talk about the idea of buying a beat up old car and tinkering with it and getting it roadworthy before the end of your gap year when you take it on a cross Canada road trip. Or maybe you're going to stay at home for your university or college career. So maybe you want to redo your bedroom or build a suite in the basement of your parents' home, working with contractors, electricians, designing, thinking about where the electrical outlet should go. All of these are very, very transferable skills. Getting involved in social or environmental justice is a big topic for a lot of students. A lot of people are interested in studying sustainability. Imagine getting out there and doing conservation work or working with corporations. So many things that you can do. Getting clarity on your future, learning a new skill. We're kind of rushing through a lot of these at the end here. Learning a new skill like a new language or an instrument or how to code or any of those things that are kind of missing, could really, really like that. So if do students still use OUAC if they're applying during their gap year? Yes. So if they're applying to an Ontario institution, yes, you go through OUAC in the exact same way. It will ask you, are you coming from grade 12? The answer is no. And then in the back end, you get coded as a 105 student instead of a 101. No biggie, but the exact same process to apply to those schools. Great question. Thanks for asking that. Cool. So we've got 2 minutes left. If any other questions come in, I'm happy to support you with that. So please put them in the chat there. But I will actually just jump into ways that you can support your students who are considering a gap year. So helping them with that decision to gap or not to gap. On our website, cangap.ca/quiz, we have a fun interactive quiz where students can decide if a gap year is for them or not. You can give them gap year planning and sample activities. Again, lots of resources on our website about how to do that, and talking about their post-secondary plans after their gap year. So at the very least, making sure they're putting dates into their phone about when they need to apply to their post-secondary institutions to help them not miss those dates. We don't want their gap year to turn into an accidental gap 2 years because they didn't get their applications in on time, and providing supports. So again, we are super, super helpful. When you reach your capacity, your limit, your knowledge limit, your ability to support students, please don't hesitate to send them over to us. We offer free 30-minute consultations for families to help clarify and point them in the right direction of the resources that are going to help them. So just so many resources out there for you and your students, and you can find them all at cangap.ca. So I think that is pretty much, my little helper is back. Pretty much all I have for you guys today. And I know we are right at time. So let me check these couple questions that come in. Do you know of any resources that offer scholarships for a student taking a gap year? Yes, we have a couple. The first one is, yes, Naomi, just 1 second, please. I'm almost done. I need 2 minutes. Okay, kiddo? Okay, 2 minutes. You guys have 2 minutes of my time before my kid needs me. All right. Yes, the Canadian Gap Year Association offers $5,000 every year in scholarships. Also, the Youth Travel Foundation, YTF, they offer scholarships specific for travel. And the third option is looking at the RBC Future Launch Scholarship, which is $1,500. And that goes for any kind of non-academic skill building opportunity. So whether that's buying a camera and taking photography lessons, I know students who have received it for international service learning programs where they're going to be developing skills. So those would be my three. So the CanGab Scholarship, cangab.ca/scholarships, RBC Future Launch Scholarship, you can Google it, and the Youth Travel Foundation Scholarship. What about some more of the competitive programs where 1 of 5 students are limited acceptance? So that is a rare, I shouldn't say rare, that is not standard. So if that is the case, then you need to really look at what is the trade-off between taking a gap year and not. So again, asking them to apply in their right out of grade 12, and then deferring is probably the best option if it is a competitive program. Some of those competitive programs don't offer deferrals. And then also looking at, is there a supplemental application? So in the event that there is a supplemental application, you can spend your gap year really building out some of the experience so that supplemental application has a really, really robust backing to it, rather than a student who maybe just came out of high school and didn't have as much lived experience to support that. So that would be my advice for that, Sienna. So there you go. We are right at 2:02, and I am so grateful that you came out to this session. I hope it was helpful for you. Please don't hesitate to check us out. We've got our booth here. We've got lots of resources on our website, and would love to see you all there. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and good luck with the rest of the fair.
Mommy.